Nick, welcome to Let's Grow Young. It's great to have you on here.
Thank you, Sanj. I love the title of what you do, Let's Grow Young. I'm trying to do that every day.
Amazing, and we're going to go into how you do that and the success you're having with it. I actually came across you through a common connection, Charles Mattox, and I looked at and I watched the documentary in Costa Rica. Not only was I really jealous that you got to go to Costa Rica, I was quite awed by what you were doing out there. So yeah, that's how I found you, and it's great to have such a common connection.
Yeah, I loved working with Charles. You're referring to Reverse the Race for Longevity docu-series, 4 episodes. You can watch it a few places. Tubi's one of them. I think E360 is another platform it's ending up on. And I was the host, and it was an adventure. I'll tell you, going to Costa Rica, amazing place. The people I got to work with on the set, even just the crew, just amazing human beings. It's forever a treasured memory for me shooting that docu-series. I loved every minute of it.
Yeah, and a few of those guys have been on this channel as well. Nicolina was one of the very first, and Alan, before he became a boxer, was also on here as well. So I'm just amazed at how you guys keep coming on to Let's Grow Young, and I'm very humbled to have you on. But away from the formalities, Nick, I know who you are. Why don't you give us an overview, and why don't you give the viewers an overview of who you are?
Look, I think that what I'm here doing is really the next chapter of my life in full force. We share that with you in terms of like, decide to do something, go for it. Yeah, I know I exited out of a solar tech company that I founded and built over 6 years. And I was sitting on an output of that, nice sum of money, opportunity in front of me. What do I want to do next? And I'd been blogging on the side about longevity and biohacking, but there was something a bit deeper going on in me where I really felt like this is going to be a really big thing. This is going to change humanity, and it's going to have such a positive impact on human suffering, which is something I care a lot about, disease and preventing disease and detecting it early. And you know what? I'm going to put my cards on the table and go all in on this longevity thing. And so here I am putting in my entrepreneurial skill, my communication skill, my passion, my time into this project, A Longer Life, that I've built to help people navigate this really exciting transition that humanity is going through, where we're going to live longer than we ever thought was possible. I sold that business at the very end of 2022. So 2023 rolls around. It's time to rebuild, do something new. And, that's a kind of a confronting chapter in any person's life. And I know you've got a lot of listeners who are entrepreneurially minded, who want to build companies, scale them, exit, and you think you're going to get to the end. And I remember a mentor of mine saying, you think you're going to get there and it's all going to be sweet and you're going to feel fulfilled and it's all done. But no, a new fire is going to start up for you. You're going to realize, wait a second, I got to keep working. I got to keep going. I got to keep improving myself, keep growing. And that's exactly what happened for me. I went on a retreat by myself up into some mountains here in Australia, did some fasting, looked at my life and thought, where do I want to go next? And kind of came down with the answer of stay the course, get onto this health and longevity thing and keep going because you really love it. And it's an amazing, exciting future. And it really connects back to some powerful experiences I've had because you just mentioned, like, how did I get into this? Well, I got into this really through exploring the technology around preventative healthcare because the mother of my son and two of my best friends in their late 20s all got diagnosed with cancer. And my son, when he was born, is actually when his mother was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. And she had to have 2 surgeries over 4 years. It was a harrowing experience. All three of them are alive and well now, thanks to the wonders of medical technology. But as I came out of that, I was really starting to answer that question as a technology oriented guy. Why are we detecting disease at stage 3, stage 4 cancers and people have heart attacks and then they die or get rushed to the emergency room? Like, why aren't we scanning people's bodies and testing their blood and looking through all the data and finding disease early? Well, it turns out that even back in 2018, when I went to a longevity clinic and did a full body MRI, full genome sequence, the works, that the technology to do most of what I just said already existed. Just most people didn't know about it. And there weren't that many clinics doing it. And there wasn't really a true market for it. Fast forward now to 2025, we have big companies like Function Health, which are doing really well, that are going out there and giving people preventative blood screening with cancer testing in those blood tests and talking about giving people full body MRIs. So that market is now growing, excited, full of people that want to stay healthy, detect disease early. And that means it has the fuel it needs to keep bringing in the newer and next generation technologies that will extend our health even further into the future. So it all really rolls together. But it was those initial experiences with mortality that really looped me in and made me think like, wow, life is so precious. Our health is so precious. We should really be doing as much as we can as a society to protect that for people. Enough with this whole stage 4 cancer, you got a month to live thing. We don't have to do that anymore. We really don't.
And I was reading your story, and thanks for sharing your personal story around what kind of was the trigger. Do you think that it was the personal story with your son's mother and your friend that was the genuine trigger to this? Do you think you would have just continued in the old mindset that you had without such a trigger, without such a shock?
I love that question, Sanj. Yeah, it was life changing. I mean, to be in that operating room for cesarean section and hear the word cancer and see tumors come out of your wife's body, she's now my ex-wife, formerly wife, like that was mind-boggling. That was absolute game changer for me. It was seeing the mortality that is right there in front of us that you take for granted these things when you're in your late 20s. You don't think about it. But to have that confront me in that way had me really thinking from an early age about how fragile life can be. But more importantly, just how much suffering is in the world because of late stage disease diagnosis, full stop, as I just shared.
So I guess what you can see, Nick, is I haven't asked you any longevity questions at the moment because what I try to do is I try to understand the broader framework of what people do. And personally, I'm getting a bit sick and tired of individuals, influencers, etc., promoting the next pill.
Mm,
And I'll give you an example. I was out for a run the other day, and I happened to walk past a pub. And I have a beer, I love a beer, but I had to stop to do my shoelace up. And as I looked up, I saw a guy, this is no joke, I saw a guy taking NAD capsules with a pint of beer and a burger on the side. And I thought to myself, fucking hell, right, there's a positive there. People are learning about what NAD is. But do people just think that you can pop an Ozempic, you can pop a Wegovy, you can pop a NAD tablet and not look after the rest of your lifestyle? And that's what really boggles me about this. And this is what I really like about your framework. I think it's a good segue into your framework to start kind of talking about strategy, mindset, lifestyle, technology. I'm increasingly getting really tired of people saying, take this pill, take this hydrogenated water, without someone talking about everything. What's your thoughts around that?
I love it, Sanj. That's such a great illustration of this NAD capsule with a beer and a cheeseburger. I love that because that is the attitude that many of us are guilty of bringing to our health and wellness. And it's also not entirely your fault that that might be why you think that's the solution, given that you are targeted by hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in advertising on platforms that are very good at predicting what you will buy. You're on Instagram, you're on Facebook, you're on X, you're on LinkedIn, you're on Google. These platforms, these tech giants, they have so much data on you. They know all of your interests, current, past, can predict those in the future. And the ads that you see are won by the highest bidder, not necessarily by what works. And so people can be forgiven for thinking that they can take a pill and change their life because that's what they're marketed to believe. And the sources of information about what the latest and greatest technologies may be is predominantly through advertising dollars. And so this is a bee in my bonnet, as the phrase goes, as well, because you can't just simply go to all these amazing, what I call longevity technologies like supplements, red light therapy, biological age tests, and solve the problem with money because you're going to run out of money. There's too many things to buy. And in that framework of just trying things, you're not going to really know what works. And the most effective things you can actually do for your longevity are way back at the beginning of that 4-part framework that you just listed out. And actually getting involved with the cool, sexy things like the capsules you were mentioning, that's something we should do after we've laid the framework, after we've got a strategy in place, after we've got our mindset right. And most of those things you can do for free. And the journey through doing that will introduce you to a growth mindset, which can actually change your life. Because as soon as you realize that acquiring new knowledge, new skills, new experience, you can change the outcomes in your life, that you have agency, this is a life-changing moment for people because most of us, when it comes to our health in particular, we are subconsciously programmed to believe that we will get old, weak, sick, dependent, And that's the way it is. You'll be on 3 to 5 pills and you'll be in aged care or nursing home. And that's the way the cookie crumbles. There's nothing you can do about it. But in fact, that is not the case. And there's plenty of evidence that it's not the case, but we have to look for it. We have to open up our mindset and we have to adopt a growth oriented longevity mindset to see that our choices matter. And they matter more than just having a great body for the next beach season or being able to look good, feel good, have better energy levels, more mental clarity. These things, when you do them right, all these lifestyle changes that many of us know we should do, when you understand, going all the way again back to that mindset, that those changes done over time can compound to 5 to 10 extra healthy years during some of the most rich and rewarding parts of your life, that's something worth chasing. But you can't just do it with impulse and short-term thinking. It is a mindset you have to bring every day.
I love that. How do you talk your clients through the whole mindset theory, the whole mindset changing process? It's pretty difficult, right? I mean, I'm close to 50 years of age and I was pretty stubborn and I needed an incident myself to start rewiring my mind, an external incident. But, as part of your framework, if I was a client of yours, how would you go into looking into my mindset and changing it?
Yeah, this is why I have built a free online course about longevity mindset. You can go to my website and start watching it straight away because I want to bring this to people at scale. And it really begins with understanding what I was just describing, that we have a mindset that is formed by beliefs that are based on our life experience and our social programming or cultural programming. And then that forms how we view the world. It forms our worldview. And the interesting thing about mindset, all those things I just mentioned can be changed. They can be altered. And most powerfully, they can be altered by having what I call a realization, a new moment of seeing reality differently. And in terms of a longevity mindset, I think there are two key realizations that I want people to arrive at. And this is what the course walks you through. And the first is what I was just describing, is that disease is not destiny. You do not have to grow old, weak, sick, taking pills, in aged care, unable to do the things you love. But you most powerfully believe that because through subconscious programming, just because everything you see culturally around you is like the gentleman with the pint at the pub eating the cheeseburger, who's probably also overweight, sedentary, works a stressful job, and is trapped in the rat race of produce more, consume more. Right? That's what our modern culture teaches us. We've lost touch with things that actually matter and actually motivate us in a more healthful way. And so when we can actually look at the evidence of why disease is not destiny, we can create that mindset shift because we realize and see that it is true. And why is it true? Well, it's true because of what we call our epigenome, and that gets into a bit of science. We thought for a long time that it was genetics that determined whether or not you would grow to be 100 years old and healthy, or if you die at 50 of a heart attack. We thought for a long time that was genetics. And that adage still is repeated. Oh, I have bad genes. Oh, he has good genes. It's not actually true. What is more powerful in terms of our realization around genetics is that genes actually define our risk. They tell us what we're most likely to develop or will develop first in terms of vulnerabilities as we age. But what's more powerful is that our genes are actually expressed by our epigenome. And this is where we get a lot of these cool tests around biological age. They're actually looking at the epigenome. The epigenome is telling your DNA how to be expressed. It's how you can have the same DNA in all the different cells of your body, yet you have a retinal cell, you have skin cells, you have cells in your liver and your kidneys, you have hair cells, nails. All that's the same DNA, but it's expressed differently by the epigenome telling each cell what it's supposed to be, how it's supposed to work. It's the organizing information. And in fact, this makes your whole genome expression adaptable. And this is why all those things we hear about eat a good diet, get more exercise, sleep better, drink clean water and breathe clean air, and you'll be healthier. This is why, because that is telling our epigenome whether or not we should be healthy or we should be sick. And in fact, it is so powerful, this epigenome, that we can put identical twins right next to each other, same exact DNA, but different lifestyles, particularly in smokers. This is very noticeable. And we can see a very different outcome with the same DNA based on lifestyle choices. The twin who didn't smoke looks much healthier. The twin who stays fit and eats well, it looks younger. And biologically, they are younger. And that's really exciting. It means that you don't have to get old and sick. You can grow older and keep your health, keep your function, keep your independence. And what I love the most is when I find examples of human beings who are doing this in a powerful way. I call them longevity legends. Gentleman named Hiro Tanaka is a sprinter and is a Japanese guy in his early 90s breaking world records sprinting. Shirley Webb, she's a 80-year-old powerlifting grandma, she calls herself, doing deadlifts. She deadlifts as much as I do. And we talk about these people in the free online course, and we encourage people through exercises to identify a longevity legend in their community and have a discussion with them about their mindset. And all that together is what brings you to that realization of, I don't have to get old and sick. And that's a realization number one of a longevity mindset. So when we progress through all this factual information and we reflect it back to you occurring in life through these examples, and then you practice looking for it in your own life where it's reflected back to you in actual human conversation, this is when you start to get it. This is when it starts to land. This is when you get the motivation to make those habit changes that we all know we should do, but haven't necessarily had the motivation to do so.
Interesting. I think that's very much aligned to the framework that I try and deploy with my clients as well. I'm just going to get a little bit scientific, and I guess if you and I sat in a pub, we'd probably just talk science all the time and bore the hell out of everyone. Because when you start to talk about epigenetics and genomes, it reminded me of a interview I did with Hannah Went from True Diagnostics, and we talked about DNA methylation and gene expression. And one of the great things that I learned through my interview with Hannah was that, yes, I may be of Asian origin, which puts me at a risk factor of X for certain things. But just as a piano has 80 keys, we can choose which keys to press. And it's the same with our genes. We can choose which genes to express by pushing the right lifestyle buttons. And if people realize that, they should understand and come more back to what you've just said, that disease is not definitive. You just need to express certain genes in the right way to live a better life.
Yeah, well said. The illustration of the piano is another powerful way of expressing that. And Hannah is a friend of mine. Her husband, Ryan, and her run True Diagnostic in Lexington, Kentucky. I visited there last summer, and they are just doing some incredible work. Let me tell you, they are doing incredible work at True Diagnostic, and they, in fact, have had these research partnerships that they built with a lot of forward-looking prescience, just like seeing the future over the last few years that have just put them generations ahead of other companies who are doing epigenetic analysis. And they have taken to the point now where they can not only tell you your biological age and your rate of biological aging, but also the approximate biological age of different organ systems in your body. And even beyond that, they've developed this new technique called epigenetic biomarker proxies, EBPs, which may in fact replace a lot of blood testing. Because what they've discovered is that your epigenome carries the information of key blood markers. We're talking like liver function, the kidney function, blood glucose, the levels you would normally get measured as an instantaneous value when you get a blood script from your doctor, that these in fact have a running average stored in your epigenome. So they actually can tell you the approximate values of all these different blood markers from a single drop of blood by analyzing your epigenome. So True Diagnostic is showing a great example of the future and the power of epigenetic analysis, not just for biological aging, but for our health altogether. And it's going to be pretty interesting to see where that goes next in terms of very specifically playing those keys you were mentioning.
And what I like about True Diagnostics, and I'm sorry, I'm not sponsored by anyone, so I just like True Diagnostics. What I like about them is a lot of people say to me that there are so many epigenetic clocks on the market, but True Diagnostics actually publish the algorithm. Right, and they publish the algorithm. If you're geeky like I am, you can review the inputs, how they're processed, what the outputs are, what the mathematic formulas are around them. They're reviewed by peers, and there's not many companies who do that. There's not many companies who have the confidence to release those algorithms. So I love that company, but I love it because of the authenticity and the transparency of the work they do. Full stop. I'll switch away from this now. Nikki, you mentioned obviously the lifestyle mindset and with the longevity mindset. One of the issues that I face, and I love the fact that you're talking about longevity heroes in the community, right? So I I get bored by Brian Johnson. I get bored by all these people in the media saying, "Hey, look at me, I'm a billionaire and I lead a fucking boring life. Sorry, this is my opinion, it's not Nick's, right?" And yeah, I'm doing all this stuff, but there doesn't seem to be much substance around it. There doesn't seem to be much variety to life. I love the everyday longevity heroes. I'm interviewing a 72-year-old High Rocks champion very soon. And I love the fact that you are also identifying longevity heroes who are living this stuff. But one of the critiques that I put on myself is that if you're a mother, a father with kids, a dog like I have, you're working the 9 to 5, you're jumping on the train. Sometimes your mindset is geared to the day to day, man. Is putting food on the table, paying the mortgage. And the greatest reward I have is trying to rewire the brain of the people who are not necessarily tech millionaires, the people who are day to day, and just showing them little hacks here and there. What's your thoughts around mindset and strategy for the everyday person who can't automatically say, right, I'm going to have a longevity mindset because I've got so many little things that I need to get on with life? What are the type of hacks that everyday people can build into their mindset and strategy to achieve that?
Yeah, a really practical question, Sanj. And this is exactly why I have actually started studying psychotherapy. I've actually joined a 3-year course to go into a certain practice of psychotherapy that's focused on what we call body psychotherapy. And one of the things that helps illuminate is the characterology that we bring to life. It teaches a lot about our trauma, our pain, our protective patterns. And the reason I bring this up in response to what you've just shared is that if we can bring the ability for some self reflection and understanding of where we sit in terms of our own tendencies, we can actually more powerfully activate habit forming improvements in our life for our longevity. And I'm very interested in where this is going to go for me as I more deeply understand it and begin to even practice it with individual clients. The main thing that I want to say there is that there's these different types of characterologies. And one of the things I've learned about myself, for example, is that I tend to be more get up and go, more I can tend toward the more anxious side. I'm ready to get out the door, go for a run, very motivated to get out and do, but I have a harder time being grounded, regulating my nervous system, getting into deep states of relaxation. Now, there's a completely contradictory or opposite characterology where that person might have a hard time being motivated to get up and go, to do that exercise, but they're very good at regulating their nervous system. They don't even know what anxiety is. And to be able to understand where you sit in terms of these different characterologies, I think will give people the understanding, self understanding they need to know which parts of their life they have to build habit into so that they do the things that are healthy for them. Whereas certain things are going to come very naturally. In those illustrations I just gave you, they're opposite. We're going to need to build in habits into life that are just automatic go-to routine based items that get done the thing that we're least likely to do. So I know that if I can build in a habit of doing a short meditation before bed, I do a little pulsetto vagus nerve stimulation at the same time, bring that nervous system down into rest and digest. If I can just have that one little habit in there, that's going to take me further toward getting better sleep than if I just skip it, which I would tend to do if it wasn't a habit and something I knew I needed to do. So everyday people who are in the grind that you were just describing, if they have a bit of self-knowledge and know those health things that they are least likely to do, but can find a way to just stick it in there so they just do it, or they build it in with some support with some friends who are always going to do it with them at the same time, like going for a walk in the morning, or maybe they meet for a fitness class two nights a week, and they have that bit of extra motivation that they know they need. You can buffer your weak points in terms of the longevity lifestyle with a bit of support, habit, routine, friends, social circles, and even in navigating that with your spouse, your partner, your family, being like, these are the things I need to do for my health. Don't be afraid to own that and declare that and make sure that's a priority, because ultimately, why are you doing that? So you can stay healthy to keep being there for your family and the people that you love.
And I think that that's a great answer you gave. And you talk about habit formation a lot. One of the conversations I have a lot with people is around goal setting versus habit formation. My thoughts on goal setting are quite out there in that I don't believe in setting big goals. That's from my personal experience, which is that you can set a big goal, whether it's a corporate goal, a financial goal, a health goal, and often you'd reach that goal and you say, well, is that it? Is that all there is at the end of it? Or you don't reach the goal and you lose confidence. And it was on a leadership seminar that I had at the McLaren Formula One company where I realized that actually I'm not the only one in thinking this. I'm sat with the world leaders in Formula One racing. And have you heard of this analogy before with the McLaren Formula One organization?
No, please keep going.
Okay, so from the moment you walk into their factory and their headquarters in the UK, you sense, wow, you can smell the winning attitude. You can smell that these people are pristine, these people are polished. The way you walk into the building, the way they check you in, you take a tour of the factory, everyone knows what they're doing. They're all communicating, everything's clean, the tools are kept in the right place. You go to the canteen, everything is organized in the correct way. And then in the seminar, the leaders of the organization said, the reason we produce world champions time after time after time is because we don't stick a badge every year to say we're going to win the world championship. We live and breathe it. If you work for McLaren, you've got to be here at a certain time. You've got to dress in a certain way. You've got to make 1% improvements every single day to what you're doing. And if everyone makes that 1% improvement, your baseline is increasing every single day, every single week. And that's what I try and tell that everyday mum and dad and say, look, man, I'm not asking you to lose 5 kg this week. I'm asking you to get up 15 minutes earlier, to do some breathing routine, to sit in the garden and have your cup of coffee with your dog running around, to do a bit of reading. And I found that when people start that, these changes become automatic, these habits become automatic, and the growth becomes exponential. And it sounds like you're kind of preaching something similar.
Well, I think I am. And what I love about what you just said is that you're bringing this ethos, you're describing what you did with Formula One and McLaren, this ethos of being in that mindset each day. And one of the things that I think gets lost in the whole longevity discussion, and you're mentioning being a bit tired of hearing about the latest longevity hackers' experience with XYZ technology, is that we're treating longevity like it's something we can go and get, like it's some achievement. Like this guy's got it, but this guy doesn't, or I have more of it than you do. But all that's just empty goal setting type language or just showing off, maybe even narcissism, right? Longevity is not something you get. It's not a destination that you arrive at. It's not something you can obtain. It's not even a goal. It's a mindset. Longevity is a mindset. It's a way of showing up and saying, my life, my health are valuable. They are my central value, and I can do something to protect them and do that over time. And that will reap many, many dividends for me long into the future because of those small iterative improvements you were just mentioning. But that's mindset. That's showing up each day with a growth mindset and saying, hey, my decisions matter. I can gain more knowledge. I can improve my skills. I have impact on my health. I have agency over my health future. And that's why that is so powerful, what you've just described, because it is something that allows you to imbue each day with that same, this matters. What I'm choosing today matters type thinking.
And I hope that the people listening to this or watching this when it goes out are picking up on the fact that we haven't even gone into sleep, nutrition, exercise, community, stress. We've not even talked red light hyperbarics yet, because the power of, I think, Nick's formula at the moment is that it's focusing on you, your mind, and the strategy to optimize first. And then and the final thing I'll say on this, the other switch that I've learned is the difference between energy and time, Nick. And so I think a lot of people confuse, I don't have time for this. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to eat properly. But they confuse time and energy. And one of the analogies again I use is that you can be spending time on your relationship with your partner by going on holiday with her and sitting by the pool 8 hours a day. But if each of you is on your Kindle or your book reading for those 8 hours and not conversing with each other or swimming with each other, you've actually spent no energy with each other. You've spent no quality energy with each other. And so when it comes to lifestyle, one of the practices I've learned is it's almost a vagus nerve reaction, which is what is a consequence of what I'm about to do? Where is my energy going to get directed? Okay, I've received a shitty email, or I'm about to enter into a everyday type of argument with someone. What's that going to do for my energy? So even before it gets there, I'm able to stop it. And so this is what I love about your framework. It's teaching people that at the start. Right? Let's get the mindset right. Let's get your energies right. let's get the time right, and let's put that strategy in place. And once that strategy is in place, then I'm sure you build onto the other layers of lifestyle optimization.
Yeah, that's right, Sanj. And I love the example of you used there, which was one of investing in relationships, because that's something that's also getting missed in this entire longevity discussion. Because you could be the best person for sleep scores because you sleep in your own bed all by yourself in the dark and you go to bed at PM every night and you could show off your numbers the next day. But what does that mean for connecting with your partner or with your friends or having a bit of fun or connection with your social circle that might go a bit beyond your bedtime? You can lose the forest for the trees very easily when you go relentlessly into optimization and so-called longevity biohacking. And that really starts to peel you away from the central values of human connection and why you're even here or would like to live longer in the first place.
I love that example. Actually, this morning I like to get my 8 hours, 15 minutes, which is what Harvard says what we should all be getting. But my dog, for some damn reason, managed to run into our room and open the door with a tennis ball in her mouth at 4 a.m. And then the initial reaction is, give me a break. But then I kind of see her face and I see her so excited to have broken into the room with the ball in her mouth. I naturally got up and just took her out to play. And my mind just switched and said, you know what? Hey, yeah, I'll be a bit tired later, but let me get this done. Let me play with her. Let me have my mushroom coffee in the garden. And then 6 a.m. I just went out for a run. And so I think I chose to have that mindset around that. So I love your example. Nick, moving on then. So you've now assessed people's mindset. You've kind of looked at their risk factors from a mindset and longevity perspective. You may have looked at various kind of risks around various conditions, whether it's diabetes, Alzheimer's, etc. How do you then start optimizing people's lifestyles with your framework and lifestyle medicine, lifestyle nutrition? I'm married to a general practitioner. How does that then start coming into play? What are some of the key pillars around lifestyle medicine that you would go into?
Yeah, great transition there into longevity lifestyle, which is the third part of my framework. And really, it's not even my framework, it's just the one I've put out there to make this easy for people. This is the stuff people already know. We have our nutrition, and I use that word very specifically. It's not diet, it's nutrition. Fitness, also using that word very intentionally, not exercise, fitness, sleep, our mental health, and then our environment, the air we breathe, the water we drink, the house we live in. And we know that we want to optimize these things. We know we should eat well, that we should move more, that we should sleep better. We kind of have these things burning in the back of our mind if we pay attention to our health at all, or even if we don't, we know that maybe we should be doing those things better because they come at us from all different directions. I think the challenge with that somewhat long list is that it can immediately feel overwhelming. Like, oh, that's a lot of things to change and that's a lot of stuff to learn. And oh boy, Nick, which diet should I follow? There's so much conflicting information. Same thing with fitness. I try to boil it down to the basics, just 2 to 3 things you need to remember about each of these categories. And so I'll give you an example with fitness in that we think that there might be some very specific longevity fitness protocol that I put up on my website, but that's not it at all. That's not it at all. That's not what's going to work for everyone. That might work for some people who are just like me, gung ho, want to get up and do it all. But that's not everybody's personality. It's not everybody's characterology. We need to really have a diverse mindset approach here when we think about how people are going to respond. And so what's more important here is finding physical activity that you like to do, because too many of us try to go to the pump class, or it used to be Zumba. It's always a different name. It's always a different trendy thing, hot yoga, whatever else it might be. We go to these things. We think we should drag ourselves to go do it because it's good for us and maybe we can lose a few pounds, look a bit better, etc. That's totally the wrong mindset. What do you want to do? Do you want to pick something you love doing? Because when I'm telling you that we're thinking over the long term here, we're thinking decades in the future, longevity mindset, all this fitness activity that you're going to be doing to keep your cardiovascular fitness up, to keep your strength fitness up, balance, all the rest. It needs to come from activity that you can enjoy doing, right? That's point number one. What did you like doing when you were younger? What did you fall in love with? For me, it was hiking, which turned into trail running, swimming, liked running and swimming. I liked riding my bike. Oh, Then I started doing triathlons because I love doing all those things. It's not going to be triathlons for everyone. Goodness, some people are going to hear that and think, no way. But they might really like playing tennis, or they might really love kicking a soccer ball. You focus on what you like and enjoy doing that can get your heart pumping, get your muscles moving, get your brain firing. And you just do that. That's where you start. You just do more of that. You build it into your life. And then you don't just do it, you do it with other people. Because if you have camaraderie and social cohesion around the activity you love to do, then you're going to keep doing it. And you're going to form friendships and connections, which mean your mental health will improve. And you're going to keep doing that over time. And you probably even start to look forward to it. You might even find you're inspiring other people around you to come do that activity with you. And it becomes rewarding. So we find these ways to kind of build ourselves up with our internal compass of, I feel joy when I do this. I feel enjoyment when I do this. It's not suffering. It's not terrible. It's not something that's where I started when I started cardio. I got on like an exercise bike and I was like, I hate this. Don't want to keep doing this. But I tell you what, I get on a bike and ride through the hills with a friend or two, and that's fun. I like doing that. So what do? I keep doing it. This is the way we need to think about all these different lifestyle factors, is how can we do them in a way that it actually improves the quality of our life and makes us want to wake up each day. It's the same sort of thing with the food you eat. What's the healthiest diet, Nick? I get that question all the time. The healthiest diet is the healthiest one you can stick to. It's not the one you're going to jump on and stop and then, eat all that junk you missed. And then they think, oh, I should go on a diet again. That's not working for you, clearly. It's the healthiest one you can eat that you enjoy and that you can enjoy eating with other people. For many, it's still a cultural thing. And some of those things that you do in a cultural way are enrich your life so much more than if you decided, you know what, no, I'm vegan now. I'm not going to eat with my family at Christmas anymore because I'm going to have a completely different meal because that's healthier for me. You're starting
Get me
to
started on
lose
this one.
you're starting to lose out on some of the most rewarding, best parts of life. And then I add a little caveat at the end where I say, but you got to back that up with some data. You got to look at your blood work. You got to make sure you're not trending toward diabetes or trending toward heart disease. Your blood will tell you that. And then you can make some tweaks from there. You're like, okay, you know what? I'm going to eat a little less cheese. My name's Nick and I love cheese, but my cardiovascular health doesn't love cheese as much. So I have to eat a little less cheese, even though it gives me joy, even though I love eating a pizza, because I know my blood data is telling me, hey, a little less saturated fat, Nick. Just turn that dairy knob down a little bit and you'll be healthier and you'll live longer for it. So you can bring in the tweaks afterwards, after you build up that foundation of eating in a way you can adhere to and that you enjoy. And of course, you got to remember not to eat too much.
There's a lot in what you said there, which is common sense, but the factor that destroys all of this is stress. So,
Sure does.
when stress comes into this, look, I can be doing I'm not very good at your daily yoga and your daily meditation. And I'm of Hindu origin. So, the whole mantra is that Om, sitting there doing Om. I've seen my parents do it since I was a kid. I can't do that. But what I've learned to do is what is called active meditation, which is that when shit hits the fan, when the stressful situation comes up, feeling the vagus nerve about to tell my brain to act like a prick and stopping itself. So I've actually learned that through the hard way, that active meditation works. And when stress comes into it, I used to resort to maybe a glass of wine or a cookie. I'd miss the exercise, forget it, can't be bothered, watch a bit Netflix. But now that active meditation, if you can see that stress coming and you can see the impact it's going to have on everything else and the human you'll be the next day, I think if people can start thinking like that and anticipating the triggers and the reactions, they can start building that into their everyday routines.
Active meditation, that's a great illustration. And the point, looping back to the beginning where stress breaks this all down, is why mental health sits in that lifestyle bucket as so important, as understanding your own tendencies, your own triggers. Which end of things do you end up on? Like, I know that I'm on the more anxious end of the spectrum. So I support myself with some ashwagandha, with some lithium orotate, some saffron. Those things help me out a lot. And then it helps me make better health decisions throughout the day. Each of us have some knobs we can tweak in there if we start to bring that self observation and self knowledge piece into the mix as we try to optimize all these lifestyle factors. And it's why, in each of those examples I gave in fitness and in nutrition, I pointed out the importance of the social cohesion in there, because those are all supporting mental health. When we're lonely and alone and stressed, we're not going to make great diet decisions. That's when the bag of chips opens up and the box of chocolates disappears, right? And we know that.
Indeed.
And there's no room for shame in that. We all have those weak points. It's just in self knowledge to know that's where I'm going to go if I don't care for myself. I'm going to make that decision. And the reason I'm making that decision right now, eating too much or eating the wrong thing, because the last 6 hours I didn't take care of myself.
Just going back to a few other things you mentioned. You mentioned diet, and I personally think people don't actually know what the word diet means or where it comes from. And it's going to be interesting as you start your 3-year degree looking into the psychoanalysis of this, because when you mention the word diet to people, it triggers stress, it triggers restriction, it triggers, damn, how am I going to get through this? But the actual meaning of the word diet comes from Greek origins, and it just means way of life. It just means way of life. It just means, this is how I live. But we've changed the meaning of it. We've changed it to a stressful word. And so I think there's platforms like yours are adding so much value in teaching people that actually just living day by day and living healthily through diet is important. Going on to nutrition, Nick, what type of nutrition do you follow? Now, I'm not talking about diets, but do you have any general rules of thumb? I have rules of thumb, but what rules of thumb do you have?
Yeah, I think there's a few that I could share there. I think one of the biggest ones in the longevity space is there's a bit of a schism, a split between those of us who think that you should be restricting calories and restricting protein, because there's been some longevity benefits in certain animal models that suggest that that might be the right way to go. And there's those of us who look at the importance of skeletal muscle and strength and the vigor of the body as you get older and think, you know what, I think eating more protein is probably better. I sit in that camp. I eat more protein. And I think that particularly as adults get into their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, they need to be eating more protein, particularly in those later decades, because not only are they needing more protein because they have decreased protein synthesis and decreased absorption of nutrients, but they also have decreased appetite. When you start to lose your sense of smell and you lose your sense of taste along with it, food doesn't seem as nice, does not as enticing, and you generally want to eat less. That group needs to eat more protein than they are currently eating. So in terms of the nutrition piece around protein, I tend toward to think that a high protein diet is going to pay more dividends, particularly because it supports all that really vital skeletal muscle, lean muscle mass. Another point that I think is important is that nutrition is so driven by what we can absorb. And that is a lot of information in our genetics about that. And you have to be watching your blood, doing a really good genetic test. Like I work with Self Decode. They're fantastic. There's a lot of garbage genetic tests out there. Don't waste your money. You can see where your deficiencies are. You can see, if you're a poor methylator, that's the one that gets talked about the most. But I'll give you an example from my own life that took me almost 4 decades to learn. I have very poor iron synthesis and absorption. And so I have actually learned that I need to be supplementing iron. And I've been upping the amount I'm supplementing and retesting my blood and being very surprised at how much iron I need to keep adding in. I still haven't got it right. So there's this process of monitoring your blood, understanding your genetics, and supplementing where your weak points are. That is really important to kind of get that last 5 to 10% of the longevity optimization for most people. And for some people, it could be even more important. It could be why you feel low energy because you're missing something. Blood testing can help you pick that up. So those are the 2 things I'll say about longevity nutrition, because it's a big topic and we really could go many directions with it.
Where do you get your source of protein from? And just finally, I guess, your thoughts on carbohydrates.
Yeah, so I get my protein from a mixture of sources. I try to buy meats from my local farmers markets when I can, try to get things that are raised ethically and healthfully. But That's not always the easiest thing to do. So sometimes it just comes from the local supermarket delivery. But I like to eat lean proteins. So I'll eat chicken breasts. I'll eat certain cuts of beef. I will eat some lamb. We actually eat a lot of lamb here in Australia. And then I like to also eat fish. I like to eat tuna, the best sources of tuna I can get. You got to watch out for some of those poorer sources. Barramundi, snapper, whatever fish I can get my hands on. I eat that a couple times a week. And then I eat a lot of eggs as well. I love eggs. And so that's where I get that protein from animal sources. And then I supplement with whey protein isolate. I've got a company that uses grass fed cattle down here in Australia, very quality whey protein isolate that I use to supplement that protein just a bit further. And again, my protein needs are a bit higher. So when you're hearing that list, you might think, oh, that's a lot of protein, but I'm training twice a day. I'm training for triathlons and doing strength training, and there's a lot of demands on my body for protein. So not everybody needs a list quite like the one I mentioned.
Yeah, you're making me hungry actually. My go-to lunch on a weekday is egg whites with chilies, curry leaves, cottage cheese, and some pumpkin on the side. So I'm getting hungry. Carbohydrates, that's the one that everyone's talking about. Yeah,
Well,
what's your thoughts on
carbohydrates
carbohydrates?
carbohydrates are fuel. I mean, you can break down protein through gluconeogenesis and to fuel as well. You can break down fats and be working in ketosis for fuel as well. But when I think of carbohydrates, I think, okay, this is my source of energy. And so I have to focus on getting carbohydrates. I have to get an ample amount for all that training that I just described. And, it might shock some people, but I drink some sugar because
It
I'm
shocks me.
training. And sugar, despite what you hear, is not a poison. Your entire energy system runs off of sugar. It runs off of blood glucose. And what is poisonous is when we have insulin resistance and our blood sugar is too high, and that comes through poor metabolic choices over time. So sugar is something we can use as a fuel, and it's not something you need to be afraid of. And it's not going to make you have sugar face or whatever the latest trend is lately, talking about how you're going to look older if you eat sugar. It's going to do that to you if you eat way too much of it and you're pre-diabetic or diabetic. Then it's bad news. But carbohydrates are fuel. You just want to make sure you get enough of it and not too much. Now, most people are going to easily get too much because they're not doing a lot of physical activity. So you do need to mind carbohydrates if you're starting to put on extra pounds. That's probably your easiest win, is to cut back on those and eat some more protein instead.
Yeah. Again, we could spend another hour talking about nutrition, exercise, and so on, and I'm sure we'll catch up some other time on that. We've not talked that much about exercise, but there's a lot out there around exercise which people know, and I guess my thoughts on exercise is getting a good mix between exercises that increase your VO2 levels. That means some zone two. I probably do a bit too much heart rate variability work. And so I do a lot of very high intensity training with high rocks and probably too much. But a lot of focus I have now is on grip strength and lean muscle mass, and seems to work for me. What about yourself? Did you follow a similar routine? It sounds like you do a lot of long distance endurance stuff.
Yeah, so I like to aim for a magic number of around 450 to 600 minutes or intensity minutes of heart pumping exercise a week, in which I do a significant amount of zone 2 training, running and on the bike and in the pool. And then I do a bit of VO max training once a week at the track, doing faster stuff. And then I do some threshold training, which is really trying to get your body to be more efficient in recycling lactate and shunting pyruvate through the energy system. If anybody wants to nerd out on that, we could go deeper, but probably not in this podcast. And I like doing some hills each week, running up hills to work on strength. And then I do strength training. So I do an upper body day, a lower body day, and a plyometric day. And the plyometric day is a lot around explosiveness, bounciness, balance, quick movements, because that is one of the things that we lose the most quickly if we don't train it. So in terms of a longevity mindset, you want to keep jumping, you want to keep bouncing, you want to keep using your body explosively. And to be honest, that stuff's really fun. Doing agility training is fun, jumping over hurdles, jumping up on boxes. I like doing that.
Interesting. I think, yeah, what you said there sounds perfect. But quite interestingly, I've started taking lactate buffers recently, and I've found that they've probably made a 10 to 20% difference in my performance. And we won't talk about it at the moment, but for people who do compete and do really high intensity stuff, from my example, I'd encourage you to try lactate buffers. They really work for me. Finally, Nick, your final pillar, technology. And I love how we've got to technology last because we're assessing people's minds, bodies, lifestyles, and then technology. I've tried all the technology out there. What's your thoughts on longevity technology? And are there any specific ones which you're a bigger fan of than others?
Yeah, you're right about it being all the way at the end on purpose. And at the beginning of our discussion, we were pointing out how that's where so many of us get drawn to start because we get told by all those very convincing marketing messages and marketing dollars that this is going to solve all our problems. But really, the rewards paid out from the longevity technologies are really going to come after you do everything we've just described. We're talking about winning that last 5 to 10%, pushing the envelope in terms of what's possible for slowing down our aging or recovering more quickly. And so the things that I tend to love talking about are all the things that are accessible to people that they can do at home. Because I could talk about plasma transfusion or really expensive hyperbaric oxygen treatments or exosomes or stem cell treatments, but beyond being interesting topics, they're not really what people are going to end up doing. What we tend to find is that most people are benefiting from wearable technology. They're interacting with red light technology. They're taking supplements. They're very curious about biological aging and measuring biological aging. And that's predominantly the main categories. The other one that gets a lot of attention, though, is skincare because we all want to stay looking great and looking younger. And I actually spend a lot of time on longevity skincare because I have learned that our longevity is really tied to cellular senescence and inflammation. And that process gets kicked off first in your skin. And the reason that is the case is because your skin is taking all that environmental punishment, particularly from UV radiation. And as somebody who was a solar radiation scientist in a former life, take it from me, UV radiation is not good for you. It is really messing up your DNA and it's causing a lot of damage and it's shortening your telomeres and it's making your cells become senescent and they start secreting cytokines and inflammatory cascade that is a feedback process. And when your skin loses its integrity, it loses its collagen, it loses its function, that actually starts to accelerate aging systemically throughout your body. And when you start thinking about your skin that way, you start to want to take care of it. And fortunately for all of us, that's actually where longevity technology, as I see it, has advanced the most over the last few decades because it's where all the money's gone. So we have really incredible capability now to have people look very young, even though they might be in their 50s or 60s. You only have to look at somebody like Jennifer Lopez or Jennifer Aniston or Reese Witherspoon or these actresses or Nicole Kidman even who have the resources and want to invest in this to see that, wow, they look decades younger than they actually are. Now, some of that's superficial, but a lot of it is actually taking really good care of their skin and they have youthful, healthy skin for their age. And there's actually many technologies for us to interact with to keep our skin healthy. So I like to profile those on my website and people can go there to nickengerer.org. If they want to learn more about it, they can. But again, that stuff, a lot of that stuff you can do at home, which is what I think the most exciting generation of longevity technologies is right now, because that's what people can actually benefit from.
Nick, have you hacked into my computer or something? Tomorrow, I'm actually interviewing a skincare specialist who is the owner of a company called Nibu Naturals, and she uses a serum. She's developed a serum which has astaxanthin in it. And
Great
I
molecule.
started using it this week. Seriously, my skin feels really, really different. It feels amazingly different. So it was really ironic that you finished with skin because I do have an episode being recorded tomorrow all about skin and longevity. It's I'm just happy you've mentioned it because it is a hot topic right now.
It is, and I'm glad you brought that up and you got somebody coming on to talk about it because it's far more than vanity. It's an asset worth investing in and protecting, and it is here for your long-term health. There's no shame in taking care of your skin.
Yeah. I guess finally, Nick, I agree with everything you said on technology. And in fact, hyperbaric chambers, I find them difficult. After a 1 hour gym session, who wants to spend another hour in a chamber? And you've got to do it 12 times consecutively every few days to get the benefits. I'm much more a red light therapy person and do 12 minutes, 20 minutes under the lights, and it does the job. But one word I want to get in, because I'm absolutely religious about it, is autophagy. And so for me, call it technology or not, sauna, cold plunge, senescent genes, igniting them, I find that has had a big impact on me.
I'm not surprised. And a lot of those protocols that are using hot and cold to derive a lot of benefits that we have in our genome are activating protective epigenetic features that we have from our biology from long ago. So, heat shock proteins being one great example, and improving the amount of brown fat that we hold in our body being another great example. So, they're powerful tools that you can think of environmental signals going into your body saying, hey, be stronger, be more resilient.
Indeed. Nick, I guess a final thought on all of this is that when I look back at the blue zones, and there's been a lot of documentaries from Dan Buettner around the blue zones, I say to a lot of people, look, I don't live in a blue zone. I have to travel on the tubes. I don't have the choice of walking 100 cattle up a mountain every day. I need to pay bills. But the sad thing for me is that the blue zones are now creating some of the fastest rates of obesity in the world, especially in Japan. And everyone talks about Japan as being a healthy place, which it is. But if you look at Tokyo and the amount of alcohol being drunk by men, staying away from their families, the blue zones are beginning to deplete. And I'd really hope that through the education around lifestyle that people like you and I are trying to spread, that we can start creating new blue zones like in Singapore. With that in mind, what are your parting thoughts and what are your parting tips on maintaining longevity? If you had 2 or 3 tips, what would they be? And off the back of that, if you could direct people to where they can find more of your resources.
Sure can, Sanj. I would say let's build off that example of the blue zones and Dan Buettner's work. I know there's been some back and forth about the statistics of blue zones. Are they real, etc.? We can learn something really important from those blue zones that really puts a feather in the cap of our discussion. And it's that these people aren't living longer because they're eating a certain type of purple sweet potato, or they, have a specific thing that's been added to their diet. The biggest thing that they have when they wake up each day is belonging and purpose. And this is why people of older ages continue to walk cattle up a hill, because they have purpose to do that. They go back home to families that have generations of family members in them that give them social connection. And this is all part of their mindset. They don't even have to try to have a longevity mindset. They're living the key components of one each and every day. And I think that's the real reason that we have such long lived populations in these blue zones. And so when I go away with my parting words, I say, work on your mindset. And this is why on my website, nickengerer.org, last name is Engerer.org, I've deployed a free longevity mindset course that walks you through all of this, makes it simple, and helps you really understand these 2 key realizations of that mindset. The first I shared, which was that disease is not destiny. And the second is that the longevity technologies that are here are enabling us to live longer, and they're more powerful each day that you stay alive. So it's an exciting future ahead that's going to pay out lots of exciting dividends in the future, that the longer we stick around, the more exciting it gets and the more we get to see what happens next. So I share an optimistic view of the future. I share a view of the future where we can get rid of late stage disease diagnosis, we can optimize human health, and we can all focus more on the things that matter most to us and that give us purpose and meaning each day that we're alive.
Thank you, Nick. Amazing parting words. And I'll do everything I can to spread the word.